Hello, everybody. We'll give everybody the usual time to roll in here while I share my screen. Safi, as usual, my confirmation. Does that look like something I would want to present on screen in a webinar?
Yeah, it looks fine.
Cool. Astute members of previous webinars will notice I like sharing the screen because it makes my picture smaller, so you don't have to look at me as much. That's usually why I do it. All right. It's been a minute. That's about as long as I give people. Let's get started with today's product update. I'm not quite sure how long it'll go because, as you'll see, there's one of these particular update features that is a brute in a good way. So we'll see how long that takes me to kind of get out there. But let's get started. So welcome, everybody. Thanks for joining us. I am Ricky Cechinni, the Director of Product Service here at CloudRadial. We got a lot of stuff this month. I don't know what the devs have been drinking lately, but it's really kicked them into overdrive. So they're just like pumping out a bunch of new features, which is cool. And we're going to look at some of them. So before we get into the nitty gritty of it, again, if anyone's watched a webinar with me before, I really hate PowerPoints. So I just do it to give you an overview. We're going to do most of the explanation inside of the product itself. And let's go. So first things first is, how are we going to keep you informed, right? If you're out of the know, definitely keep up with our updates. Radials.io/updates just gets you general information on our monthly update kind of schedule. Community is a good place too, especially as we release new features. Being the Director of Product Service, my job isn't just to sit up here and talk about them. I'm also supporting, I'm also trying to figure them out along with you guys. So we're working on real life scenarios. There's always kinks and new stuff, as any product has it. So we're out there supporting each other in the community. And then the Academy is also super valuable, again, especially for the last part that I'm going to talk about, because some of this stuff is not necessarily like what you see is what you get. Some of it requires some pretty intensive thought. And then the last one is there's a top banner question mark within everybody's portal. And if you click on that, you're going to get this little announcement thing, visible only to partners. Your clients aren't going to see that. And that's going to give you a quick way to see like what the deal is. It should link you back to our update articles. Okay, so let's look at the cumulative what the deal is for this month. So this month we're looking at a bunch of stuff. So we're looking at a whole heap of new policies. We're looking at Windows 11 readiness as a concept, as something to talk to your clients about, which should be a good conversation starter for QBR is definitely, but more so for like refreshes and just kind of like updating infrastructures. Student training report is going to be really good for compliance purposes, just for enhanced reporting is really sweet. The client report presentation, that one is one that has been requested for a while. Not quite sure what took us so long, but we're finally there. We can allow people to run their own reports without the MSP needing to, so it's on demand truly. We have an actual integration with Hudu, which is sweet via API. We'll look at that. We're going to look at our LineGuard integration as well. That's another API one. I put in preview there. Well, it's even in the product is listed as in preview because that's a different breed of integration from what most people are used to. It's not just like you hook it up, it's done. There's a lot going on LineGuard. And then lastly, the big boy here is status workflows, which are going to change a lot of the meta of CloudRadial. So we're looking at how that works and all the crazy stuff you can do now with CloudRadial. So let's get started in said order. Let's get going with new policies. So new policies, we got a bunch of these guys, right? Everything from minimum system memory, so how much RAM, all the way to a bunch of Windows Defender 1 and Windows 11 readiness. So there's a bunch of new stuff that is going to help further kind of draw out some talking points for QBRs, for compliance purposes, all that jazz. And what we're going to see is, let's do this. I think this should work. I'm going to try to keep this as fluid as possible. I'm going to drag over that. Does that work, Safi? You guys can still see that, right? It should be the CloudRadial thing. Portal.
Yes, I see it.
Cool. That way I don't have to keep minimizing PowerPoint.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. So yeah, let's look at those policies. So again, for those that don't know, right, the whole kind of deal with CloudRadial is we're a client portal, account management tool. We kind of hybridize those concepts, but really we're going to try to deliver a really good client experience, right? That's the general gist. And we're not a reporting tool per se, but in the nature of account management, what does that really mean? It means spurring those good conversations, right? Without going too deep in this webinar, we've got lots of ways for you guys to integrate other stuff, other tools, actual reporting tools that are meant to do that. But our attempt in there is like, hey, what if we could give them insight into their own portal without having to leverage another tool potentially, right? So the gist of the situation is CloudRadial's agent, which is something you'd put on the machines, is going to gather up that information, pull it in here. We'll look at this in a sec. But realistically, even past that, the goal is that we take the information we get from these computers, and because we are controlling how it comes in, we know exactly what services and what things we're checking in with, we can run policies against it, right? So that's just a primer of these compliance policies. So agent brings in data under compliance, which is what I was looking at in the PowerPoint a moment ago. We've got these policies, and we've had a lot. I think earlier we've had 39. I think now we're in the 50s. And if you look, the way that you add new policies is, you could go through it, and you're going to kind of want to explore these, because again, a lot of these I don't think are coming with the default package. We might modify that in the future, but we're leaving that up to you whether you want to add them or not. So when I go to add a new policy check endpoint, you're going to see, again, a whole heaping new type, everything from like multiple monitors to all those Windows ones I mentioned to RAM and whatnot. And then again, ultimately, the goal of these things is to generate a client conversation down in the planner. We're not going to go too deep into that, but that's the gist of them. So definitely take a look at those. Definitely play around with them, because they're going to be just more tools to have a conversation. All right. So speaking of, right, this is kind of tacked onto that Windows 11 readiness. So Windows 11, obviously, new OS, Microsoft is kind of doing a big thing about that. So what we thought would be a neat idea is if we could help you guys start the discussion. Obviously, the policies are there to help do that in the first place. Windows 11 is actually a policy in and of itself in those new policies, but we made it so they can actually see that directly from that agent information, as I'll pull back my screen and see again. You're not going to be able to see this if you don't have the latest version of the agent, which is agent version 1.5. And that thing is specifically gathering some stuff that is intended to do Windows 11 readiness as per Microsoft standards. And I put a link in this. We're going to send this PowerPoint out, I think, to anyone who is signed up for it. So you should be able to get all these links, and there's stuff in there. But generally speaking, the way that works is typically when you have your CloudRadial instance pulled up and you have an agent deployed on a machine, it's going to show up under infrastructure, right? Generally speaking, either under endpoints or servers. That's where it's going to go. So when I click on any one of these machines, I put my machine on there just earlier before this call. What's going to happen now is you're going to see a lot more expanded view. People that were used to seeing this before are familiar with some of these fields, right? We had protection, we had some storage stuff. Now we have an additional section that shows what policies you're not compliant with on a granular level. So you don't even have to go to the policies and click at it. You can look at it very specific. How is Ricky's computer doing in policy-wise? Well, I got a couple issues, right? We got to deal with. And there's a lot more information. Again, we can pull from like configuration and whatnot, right? You can see it kind of goes deep into details as far as even like RMM-ish in terms of depth. But really, again, we're trying to keep the conversation higher level, hence the policies to help them see that red, yellow, green. But in terms of that Windows 11 readiness, if you want to drill down and see what's going on, you're going to see that there's an extra option saying Windows 11 readiness, and I am ready because I have a pretty sweet laptop. But if you hit more info, it'll show you what exactly it's checking for. Again, this is per Microsoft standards, right? Just to make sure everything's good. So our thought process is, again, seeing a lot of not ready Windows 11, saying that like, hey, obviously this has tons of ramifications for security, for performance, for compliance, for efficiency. I mean, you name it. Probably a pretty good idea to just have this available and visible in the portal pretty easily. So if you have the latest version of the agent, should automatically pull it just like this. Again, you do have the option as a compliance policy, rather than drilling into every single computer one by one. You can spin up a policy for that. Under endpoint, there's going to be a Windows 11 readiness, right? Which is just literally going to find people that are not ready and list them for you. And like I mentioned, this is dependent on the latest version of the agent. So new clients, people that have started up pretty recently, shouldn't have this issue, because obviously new portals come provisioned with the latest version of everything. If you're not quite sure if you have the latest version, if you're not seeing that, here's what you can do. First of all, if you go to your client list under partner and clients, you're going to see obviously your client list. And if you click on the tab at the top for agents, you're going to see that you have the agent list, you're going to have the IDs, and you're going to see the version number as well, right? So that's how you know at a glance if you do or don't have the right version. If you're looking to make sure that you have the latest version, what you're going to need is a data agent rebuild, which is actually pretty easy. It just means that you need the latest version pushed out there. The way you can do that to make sure that you have this version that can pull all that stuff is you're going to go to partner an account, and there's a spot up here with a little flask for labs. And when you go to labs, this is experimental functions, essentially like little scripts we can run. Not recommended that you just do these willy-nilly unless you specifically have a need. But in this specific scenario, when we're talking about Windows 11 readiness, when we're talking about all the different things you can do to make sure you're pulling the latest and greatest, definitely run the lab here. It's under endpoints, there's a section for rebuilding data agents, right? So this is going to manually force the latest provision. I have to check with development, but I'm pretty positive you need to either redeploy, or I think you do have to redeploy, pretty sure. They are supposed to auto update the agents, but I think pushing it out and redeploying it on top of itself isn't going to hurt. And it does overwrite. It's not like it's going to create a new version or whatever. So 1-2 punch, if you're not seeing that, rebuild your agents and probably redeploy just to be sure. And that'll pull that information in. So good stuff, right? Really, again, we're not trying to keep it super technical. As you can see, the whole point of that wasn't to give them all kinds of stats. It's just to say, hey, let's generate a conversation saying, can we get this? Can you get your Windows 11 ready? Make sure you guys are good for that. Kind of reminiscent of Windows 7 and Windows 10 jump up that we did not that long ago. Okay, so next up, we've got the student training report. This one's pretty simple. Basically what happened is CloudRadial, for those that don't know, has a pretty healthy training module inside of it, right? Under the university section, there's courses for a lot of either self-created or MSP-created courses, right? Where the students, the users, can take these courses and whatnot. And previously, what people were always able to do, actually, since I think the inception of the product, is they were able to track course completion by course. And the way that they did that is once the students, kind of did their stuff, students being the users, they would just go about their business, and then the administrator or the MSP would go under the compliance tab, and then there's a spot for training, right? And under training, you have the option to actually see the progress of it. So you can see I've got all my courses written out. When I click on one of the courses, what it does is it tells me which one of my users have enrolled, what was their last session, have they completed. Cool. But we've got a lot of requests from people going, they want to get more granular, more detailed as far as student-based reporting, which is what we've added. So now, whenever you want to get even more granular and a little bit more detailed, you can go to the extra tab up here for students, and it's going to show the students in the organization, right? So here's all my users, and more specifically, what stuff they've done. So just for kicks, right before this call, I did it on this account. You can see that it's not, you hunting and pecking every course. You can focus on one person and go, what's Ricky doing? What's he not doing, right? A nice simple breakdown of all the just a general overview. This is pretty helpful, right? Has he done the required ones? Has he not? And then all the ones that he's not required, has he done any of those either? Which there's a ton, and I have not learned every single thing. But this should, again, be pretty helpful. Maybe not for you guys directly, but as a selling point for yourselves to your clients as a enhanced reporting. And of course, you can run Excel downloads if you want to do a little bit different type of reporting in that sense. And then again, kind of like what we talked about for the policies, if you're using this mechanism to generate discussions to say, hey, we got a big compliance issue, no one's doing the training, we should have a, some kind of an intervention. You always remember have the option of adding this stuff to the planner, and it's going to give you a quick way to throw notes on our account planner, our little roadmap. Keep that in mind. Like I said, not too crazy, not too insane here. This is just a button click, just further information. Still pretty useful. Next up, in a similar vein, we've got the client report presentation. So people who are used to using CloudRadial for QBRs, either solely or as an assistant to a QBR, will know that it's pretty helpful to run the information, right? You kind of build your portal, you let it kind of live, breathe in its own ecosystem. And then when you're ready to run that QBR, you have a way to kind of put a report on top of that, kind of like cap it up. And the way you did that in the past, which is still how you do it, is you go to generate a report layout, right? You have to tell CloudRadial what exactly you want in this report. And you did that by going to partner and settings. And then on the right-hand side, on the configuration column, there is a place for report layouts, right? And the whole methodology of CloudRadial is that it's an online portal. It should be available 24/7, but reports have a ton of inherent value because obviously they're something you can hand out. They timestamp stuff. I mean, it's generally a good idea to have some kind of report. So what you do is you go in here, right? You build your report. You can see I've already got a couple of different templates built out. And quite literally, as you're more familiar with CloudRadial, as you know what you want or don't want, you can literally just chop stuff off, right? If I'm trying to give the big mamma jamma report, I might put everything in there. Maybe I don't want that. Maybe I literally just want one on domains or certificates or software, you name it, right? So you can just chop it up. And this is the option we're talking about today specifically. So we had this forever, show the report option to clients, which basically means that do you want the client themselves to be able to generate reports, this specific report, whenever they feel like it. And now what happens is they can. So previously, what you had to do as the MSP is you had to go to the client area. And when you wanted to run a report for a given company, you had to click on them, right? Digital efforts. And then you have to click on reports. So when you click on the reports, it gives you all the different layouts and you goes apply what template to this company. Click done. So now what happens is if you have that toggle checked on saying, do you want to give the client reports? They're going to be able to run their reports under account. So this is within their own company, not the partner dropdown, and reports. And depending on what you've given them the ability to run, they will have that listed here. So if they wanted to run their own monthly report, they click it, just like it does for you, right? For you, it builds it and then it deploys it. For them, it generates it in window. They can see it, they can download it, and that's what it's currently doing. This is a really big one, so maybe not a great example, but that's the idea. And then it's going to spit it out. So we'll see that come in a moment. 91 pages of report, labeled and everything, right? So the nice thing, again, if they want to just peruse the stuff, they can. If they don't want to click on the window, they just want to see this totally. And then again, get their download, get their PDF, and that will do similar. That will give them that PDF, just like what you generate on your end. And this is the same thing you would see. So it's like, aha, look at that. Now take it and share it. So again, not too huge of a thing, but a lot of people wanted to know if clients could generate the report. And again, you can always turn that off. A lot of people don't like people, clients being able to generate those reports. You can either turn off this section entirely in the feature set, or you can just mark reports as not being visible to clients if you don't want them to see them. So not too much of a bother, I hope. Okay, so next up, the Hoodoo integration. So documentation is always interesting. We talked to a lot of people, and CloudRadial also has a documentation engine, but it's generally agreed that the name of the game, especially with us talking with MSPs, is not, hey, let's add another place where you can create documents. It's, if you don't have one, if you want to throw something locally, please do, right? The idea of a client portal is to put it all centralized. If you've got other sources, please don't make us shun you, right? We don't want you to be like, no, we have to use CloudRadial. So we're not on a particular warpath to build our KB as the end all be all. And Hudu was kind enough to work with us to actually facilitate an API connection. So typically what we've done with most other connections, and we'll hook back up to my tenant, is when you created an article in the past, you had the option to create it as usual, right? Here's my knowledge base, right? Typically it looks something like this. They click it, it shows up. Obviously these are pretty boring, but that's the idea. And to create it, it's a text editor, right? Category, you can kind of bundle them, you can call it whatever, you write your stuff in there, cool. And for other integrations like, IT Glue or IT Boost or whatever you have that's like third-party facing, the option was if you don't want to write it, you can pull it from a web page URL. And short of that, you have the option to just open it in a new window. So ostensibly what you're doing is you're taking your existing documentation, plopping it in here, and using CloudRadial as a link library to your actual documentation system, just to keep things consistent. Hudu is nice because once you hook Hudu up, and again, that's done through the integrations page via API, you've got an option to actually do a lookup. So no more having to find the thing, getting the public facing thing. You're hooked up via API. You do a lookup, you can run it, and you can just pop one of those bad boys in there, right? So literally looking it up, finding it in there and doing it. And you can see I did a really simple one just for kicks, Hudu article example. And this one is looking up an article in Hudu, right? Not too crazy as well. This one just came out. There may or may not be some kinks to work out, but the general idea is fairly simple. And hopefully that'll help you guys, again, not reinvent the wheel if you're trying to use your existing documentation in CloudRadial. Okay, now the next one, since we're talking integrations anyways, is LionGuard. And LionGuard is special because the LionGuard, for those that use it, is kind of in the similar vein of software that we are. They're not necessarily a source of truth. They're an aggregator of truth that parses it and they put it together, and they have their own kind of a view. So they do what we do, right? In the sense that like we do it for clients, they do it for MSPs, aggregation. So LionGuard is interesting because we really don't need most of the LionGuard information, but there's lots of information that they get that is really important. So what you're going to see in our integration with LionGuard isn't us pulling literally everything LionGuard gives, because it's potentially a ton. But what we're doing is we're basically parsing out specific bits that are as client relevant as possible. And rather than just sticking it under a tab called line guard and going about our way, we're actually integrating this in existing tabs. So, oops. So what you're going to see is that when we talk about the line guard integration, this is nowhere near done. This is in preview. So that means that as we work it out with line guard, as we talk to them, we're going to identify different vendors, different areas to pull information and integrate them as naturally as possible in CloudRadial. Right now, the only two things that are working is the Veeam backups and then the Bitdefender security. And that's an example of how we're kind of working in symbiosis, right? LionGuard, again, is working with all these people and adding integrations. And we're basically essentially taking the integrations LionGuard and integrating them in our own product without needing to go to Veeam or Bitdefender directly. So the way that it works is like every other API, there's going to be a spot under partner and settings, and then integrations on the right-hand side under configuration right here to hook stuff up, right? This is the same thing. I know I didn't mention it, but Hudu is the same idea. LionGuard is the same idea. Again, pretty standard stuff. There's instructions on how to get all this stuff done. Obviously, we have support KBs on everything. And when you do so, it's going to look something like this. I think I have it written here. So once we have the Veeam stuff hooked up, it's going to go under the security tab and backups. And this tenant I have right here, Ricky's MSP, is pulling that in, right? So you can see like, hey, here's some Veeam stuff. It pulls it in. And again, we're playing a game right now where we're basically saying what's most client relevant. Certainly open to feedback if you guys have any input and everything. Pretty living, breathing integration we're still fixing. So let us know. But something that an account manager and perhaps a client alike can go in and comment on. The real goal with the LionGuard integration isn't necessarily that the client cares about, I don't know, the average duration of the backup or whatever it may be. The real goal is that an account manager, again, has a centralized location to be able to sweep all this information. So when they're talking to the client, they can reference it very fast in the portal and they have all that access at their fingertips. So this is pulling in directly from Veeam. The Bitdefender stuff happens actually under the specific endpoint. So in this case, what's happening is as I go to the endpoints, just like we saw earlier, our agents are on the machine, and it's matching the name of the organization with the, I'm sorry, not the organization, the name of the computer with the name of the computer in LionGuard. And based off that, it feeds in the information specific to Bitdefender. So in this monitor TX, for example, kind of like what we saw earlier, right? The same general information, Windows 11 ready, maybe, who knows? And then basically what happens is there's a security tab, and this gives us a little bit of information. So some of the stuff the agent pulls in natively, the antivirus or whatever, some of the Bitdefender stuff, well, all the Bitdefender stuff is coming from LionGuard. So this is an example of us trying to figure out where does the LionGuard data fit, where can we put it, where can it speak to it. So again, expect to see a lot more LionGuard data flowing in. Again, it's not quite as simple as a lot of the other integrations we've had. It's going to grow. It's probably going to change, and we're going to do some really cool stuff with them. So thank you to LionGuard and Hudu for being very gracious in your integrations with us. Okay, let me sip my peppermint tea before I go into this one, because this one's a doozy, but a good doozy. So let's talk status workflows. So in short, this is going to let you customize the drop downs people see on tickets, which in theory sounds like it'd be easy, but there's so many friggin' use cases to think about that it can be nightmarish. But good news is we've identified at least 4 of the most common ones, and we're trying to put these on Rails as often as possible. So if you don't need to use these, please ignore. If you've ever wanted to do some of the stuff that we're about to mention, then it's probably possible using this. The gist of the situation here is that CloudRadial historically obviously has a pretty strong ticketing front end. People submit tickets, it goes over, and that's cool. And the only kind of toes that we've ever dipped into any kind of workflow operation is our approvals. And previously what happened is, as people went to do their tickets, right, the actual users, they had the option to do a couple of limited ticket actions. If you gave them the ability to, they could close, open, and cancel their tickets. That was pretty standard. And the other thing that you could do is if you had a ticket requiring approval, they could either approve or deny the ticket, right? And the thought process there was it's all based off of PSA connection. So you tell us what status it's supposed to be, you tell us what board it's supposed to be or queue, and it kind of goes up and down. That's it. Status workflows kind of take that and throw it away, because now it's totally up to you as far as what you want to do. Again, what should have happened and what will happen is once you set up your PSA, especially existing clients, all of your existing stuff has been ported over to these status workflows. So everything should work out of the box. For new clients, you can build everything custom if you want, right? So what you're seeing here is a screenshot of something I'm about to show you of me actually having built a multi-step approval workflow, which wasn't possible before. So we'll kind of walk through this in a second, how it all works. So the gist of the situation here is whenever we look at a specific company, right? Again, the typical setup that we've seen, this one's ConnectWise, all 4 of our supported PSAs are pretty much identical in how this works, is you previously went to partner settings, hooked up your PSA, and went about your business. And this is what I was talking about right here. So previously, you had a section that said like, what's your closed status? What's your, there's a section for like change management. So it was like, what's your approved status? What's your declined status? That's out the window, right? You won't see that here anymore at all. So you're going to see this replacing it to update ticket options, view the status workflows. Status workflows are listed under partner settings, and status workflows a little light. And again, they don't have to be super, super difficult. They're quite literally just drop downs that you can customize. So what's happening here is I have a couple of these. Most people out of the box, you're going to get these 3 at least: close, cancel, and reopen. And the logic here is pretty simple. Basically, you're saying, okay, the end user is going to see the option to close the ticket. The status is going to change to whatever status you have in your PSA, and then you can change the order in the drop down. There's a lot of other stuff you could do that you don't necessarily need to do. That includes if you want to trigger a webhook once the status changes, if you want to set a priority, right? That was another big one. A lot of people wanted the ability that when they escalated or did whatever, they could change the priority of the ticket. We'll get into that in a second. We don't really need to talk about this right now. The main deal is, what are you showing the client and what does it do? When does it trigger, right? So in this case, this is a simple closed status, just saying close my ticket. We're not going to show it on closed tickets. It's just for open ones. And you could show it on when the ticket has one of these statuses. And I think if you leave it blank, it should show on every single one. And you have it when the user group is what, right? So in this case, if it's a closed status, pretty simple. I want users to be able to close their own tickets. I can let everyone do that, or maybe I only want administrators to be able to close tickets. So in general, again, this is pretty stock. This is just like what used to be the case. So whenever you go to put in a ticket, if I go to support and support tickets, right, this is kind of what the end user flow is. Once you have all these defined, they go in here, they click on the thing, and this is what I'm talking about, right? This is the ticket options or ticket actions. So I have the ability to close the ticket. I have the ability to cancel the ticket. And that's it, right? It doesn't have to be more complex than that. But for those looking to really amp up their game as far as co-managed, multi-level, to solve some unique challenges, which we'll look at in a moment, these things are pretty clutch. So one of the examples that I'm going to give that you can do is you can build approval workflows. So if you go back to my status workflows thing, again, not too difficult. Basically, the answer here is that I want, you can see here, the label. So I want them to have an approve option. And if they hit that, it's going to go to new client approved as far as my PSA status, only when a ticket is marked as waiting on approval. Pretty much exactly what you would expect. If a ticket is this, then it's going to show this. Same thing, if I want them to be able to deny it, it's going to change the status to this, and it's triggered off the same thing. So ultimately, when you put a ticket as waiting on internal approval, it's going to show those 2 options to administrators. That's as complex as that gets. Single level approvals. To make sure that we're not overcomplicating this and everything, and making sure that it's still pretty simple, again, you do not need to do this if you need to use CloudRadial tickets. This is just for those looking for that extra oomph. And when you go to the little question mark up top here, make sure you read this, because we've broken down, hey, like how does it work? And as I build out, I'm working with my team to build out not just documentation, but because again, this is kind of super potentially intricate, I'm doing videos for every single one of these, including Academy update videos. Look out for those soon. So if you want to know, hey, how do I set up a single level approval? It's going to walk you through. It's like, okay, go build your approval. Make sure you don't forget this, blah, blah, blah. And it kind of walks you through it. Again, a lot of this stuff for those that are kind of into this will be something you probably already have set up in the first place, but obviously I want to make sure it's inclusive to everybody. So it's going to talk about how to really work these. The more interesting cases, again, that break us apart from what we used to do, because everything I've said up until this point is something that CloudRadial already did. And it was just something that you just set up at the beginning, kind of set and forget. The interesting case is co-managed. It's multi-level approval. It's how do you treat those special companies that, yeah, sure, maybe everybody's fine, but oh, that one company, it's not good enough to say yes or no. It needs to go to Bill, then George and Fred, and then also Eric, and then it needs to go to you know, there's that kind of stuff that was really complex, and you needed almost like a kind of like a DocuSign flow. That's possible with these guys. So in short, we're not going to go too deep into it because the documentation speaks to it. One of the things you can do is if you've got a client that requires that, I did that for Bootcamp September here. Basically what happens is if you want to create a special flow for that one company, you can click on them. They have now a new status workflow tab. You can hit that, and you have the option of importing that in. And I can show you what that looks like for a new client actually. So by default, every single company is going to have those status workflows available to them, AKA everybody's going to have an open and close and everything. That's a company agnostic. That's for everybody. However, if you wanted to, again, in my example, Windows 11 agent company, if I wanted to override it for them, first what I'm going to do is I'm going to import the global settings. They're going to all come in like that, bam. And then what I'm going to do is if this company needs to have a tweaked workflow, I'll do that. Here's an interesting use case that kind of sets you off on that example. If I go to the approved status, maybe for this one company, I don't want all the admins to be able to approve, right? Which is currently how it's set. It just says allow approvals to admins. Maybe for this one company, I really actually need Ricky to approve this one, right? So all of a sudden, without needing to do a bunch of crazy crap, you basically have it really easily set to like, okay, Windows 11 agent, Ricky approves this thing. And there we go, right? Now we have a more specified flow. The ultimate example of this is kind of what I did in Bootcamp September, which is I did that. And as you see, I built 3 or 2 levels of approval, right? This one, instead of just going, okay, they approved it, it's good, it goes to a level 1 approved pending level 2. I have another level saying level 2 approved pending level 3. And if that gets approved, I have it going to new. So again, this one has like specific users enabled and all that kind of stuff. So it lets you build those flows. So this multi-level approval is probably the most complex it could get. And obviously this is going to be based off of your specific situations and PSAs, a lot of variables in play. Again, I did write the documentation on how to do multi-level approvals, at least kind of like an on the rails version. It assumes you kind of get the idea of a single level. So please look at that as a prerequisite. But overall, if you stick to this, it's really not that complex. It's just a bunch of matching and going, what do you want to happen? So you can see I broke it out going, this is 1 level, this is 2 level, this is 3 level. So should be pretty good. I've yet to write the documentation, although it should be a little bit easier. That's actually what I'm going to work on after this webinar for your co-managed case. So we have a lot of people that initially came to us asking for an option to allow users to escalate, to change the priority, to do this after the fact that they submitted the ticket. This is particularly useful for those that want to have somebody in the portal and they want them to be able to submit a ticket, and maybe they want their own internal team to get it. And if they can't figure it out, then it goes to you guys, and they want them to have the trigger to be able to do so. So in that example, we're not going to test it out right now because again, my brain might explode because I've been doing this all day. The general idea is that you would probably just build another workflow status saying, okay, I'm going to give them literally a button that says escalate. The status is going to say escalated, right? Or whatever your existing PSA status is, new from client, if that exists. And we have that option to say, okay, do we want that to raise the priority? Do we want that to only show when the ticket is potential escalation or on new? Do we always want to give that to them? And then who do we want it, right? Escalations and stuff like that should be dramatically easier because there's not that much flow. Like I saw, the multi-level approvals obviously are dependent, but this is tremendously helpful because now what you can do is not only can you leverage all of the super awesome, crazy ticket power that CloudRadial always has had as far as like information, but giving yourselves and the client the power to make the choice to say, send it over, don't send it over, whatever, can give you a pretty viable way of doing a co-managed workflow within the portal. So especially when you combine that with what we've done in the past. I think the last webinar we talked about customer specific branding. CloudRadial is trying to do kind of a big push in general to say, okay, we're not just saying it's your tool and that's it, and you develop it and you deliver it. We're trying to get you to add this potentially even as a huge value add where you can charge for reasonably, right? So a lot of these are cost savings for you because a lot of softwares, additional softwares tack onto your PSA and stuff and do this. But when you consider stuff that, remember, like you can do customer specific branding now, right, on every single portal. So it doesn't just have to be your portal, it can be their portal, right? Well, on this one, let's say. So we can go as far as to say they get custom branding, they get custom email logos, they get custom domains and all that stuff handled tacking on the status workflows, you can really give them their own environment to operate in, which is a massive value. And again, you have control over all that at any stage. So pretty exciting. Again, I knew this webinar might be a little bit hairy if I go too deep into it. I hope that wasn't too crazy, because the details and the kind of information fill will be handled, especially during the videos and the articles. But yeah, let's move on. Actually, I believe, is that a world record for me? I'm almost done in 35 minutes. Ooh. I want to talk about the next webinar we have. So we were talking with Smileback, right? And we're doing a Smileback webinar on how to capitalize on customer feedback, not just like, hey, we should get feedback and that's cool. It's like, what do you do with it? How does a client portal help you do with it? What does working with a dedicated CSAT tool like Smileback that has a ton of insight on it, how does that kind of add to the meta, bring to the table, all that kind of stuff too. So this webinar, again, will be sent with other resources as well over to people, especially, again, knowing what we know. Most of these features, because they're brand new, hot off the press, probably we're going to need to tweak some of them, especially stuff like Lion Guard will grow. But yeah, honestly, it's something to look out for. We have a very aggressive growth schedule for the rest of the year and going into Q1. So we are going to a lot of stuff.
Okay, Ricky, before, I want to bring up a couple of things. I want to tell everybody. So we've got chat going, and we've also got question and answers going, and so I'm having trouble kind of keeping up with everything. So I'm doing my best, but wanted to ask, when you're talking about the workflows, can limited access see the workflows?
Great question. Yes. So the way that workflows work, right, is if the person can see the ticket, then they have actions to take on it, right? And obviously, one of the big challenges that we have to solve is if they can't see the ticket, they can't do it. So when you look at like some of these status workflows, like great, if you want to have admins be able to see tickets and approve or escalate tickets, that's great. But that comes into play, right? What about limited admins? What if I don't want to give, if I wanted to give the billing person ability to escalate, how does that work? The recommended step is, well, I'll show you the manual step and then I'll show you the recommended non-manual step. For those that don't know, you can have roles that aren't just admin or basic user, right? When you go to usage users, you've got your user list and you've got the ability to create these different user groups and all that kind of stuff. And even more specifically, what Safi's saying is, if I don't want to make someone an all or nothing, right? Admin or not, we have the ability to delegate them as something in between, right? A limited access administrator, so kind of like a power user. And CloudRadial has been really good about this in the past, of letting you be super granular with what this one person sees. And when they see that, again, to make these ticket status workflows happen, though they may not necessarily have access to the entire portal as far as billing and stuff, it's recommended that your limited access admins that need to approve and all that stuff have visibility on tickets, which they can. So if you give them limited access, you can tweak them via this access rights and say, hey, I want you to be able to view all tickets or maybe just your site tickets. So that's one thing. So to wrap it up, if you have the limited access people and they have the ability to see the tickets, then they will have the ability to do that escalation. So that's good, especially if you're trying to get really creative with like, okay, maybe I only want to show the escalate status to IT people, right? Basically, what you're going to need to do is you're going to need to make sure that you have a way to target those people quickly, right? You're not going to do everyone in admin. You're probably going to need an IT group, and then you're going to need to make sure those are your like limited admins. So I showed you how to do it for one person. Imagine the nightmare of doing that for a lot of people, although you could do it manually. What's recommended, especially if you have a PSA, is to try to utilize the type mapping functionality. So under partner settings, under configuration, again, there's the option to do type mapping. So what this does in short is it really lifts the burden of having to do, double up sorting and ordering of people in CloudRadial. If you do a type mapping, right, you can say, hey, this is their contact type in CloudRadial. Let's put them in, IT user group, whatever. Let's make them, admin or whatever. And it can help you just map a whole bunch of people en masse over there. What's interesting, and I may be overstepping my bounds as far as my role here, but this is not going to be terribly relevant for too much longer because we're on the cusp of releasing what a lot of people really, really need, which is roles. So we have this thing, which is kind of, we have this like user limited admin. Pretty soon you're going to have kind of like what ConnectWise has and Autotask has, the big boys have, which is like, what is an admin? Is it this? You tick it off and you can make those. So in the future, near future, it'll be even easier than that. It'll be like, okay, so-and-so is this type. let them have it. So long story short, we're in the middle of reworking a lot of this stuff to make this a lot easier. So you don't have to go worry about user types and admins and all that stuff. But yes, limited admins.
I might have already slipped up and said that. So Jeff is probably cringing as he hears that, hears us, because I have it in the chat.
Yeah, so. the user role things is really important for us, especially as just as a company, because a lot of people need that, right? We've had concerns with people because, like, you know, CloudRadial, for better or worse, especially with partner level access, so not for the clients, for you guys, is kind of an all or nothing situation. This will take care of all that. So not only will it have ramifications for users and approvals and getting really mature there, but even for yourselves, right? If you wanted to make sure that a certain partner person, like maybe your technicians, have access to check tickets for a client but not see the feedback or whatever, or the invoices or whatever, we got that coming. So it'll be pretty good.
Yeah, we actually listen. So, you know, we love all the feedback. I just kind of like it precise and orderly inside of your client portal in the feature request area so that we can kind of keep up with it. But we had a lot of questions today in regards to integrations. And, you know, a lot of people want to know if we're going to integrate with IT Glue. You know, we do have a workaround there because we can't pull from HTML and links. And also, you know, other training platforms, you know, security awareness training and so forth. And one thing, you know, we really are open to integrations. I think we have over like 50 different types of integrations that we can do with other solutions. And I said, you know, so we are very open to that. Some of these people we are talking to, you know, but if you want to put a bug in somebody else's ear, that somebody that you're working with, you know, about CloudRadial, feel free to do so. You know, one thing that I think we do well, or that we're working on, is that we're really powering your data and your other tools as well into your sales and, well, into service, you know, sales, and really your client advantage. So we are very open to that.
Yeah, and I'll add something else on there, because I've had this concern come up with some people that I don't think we've ever publicly addressed. We're not an exclusive company. So it's like, I think some people worried about that too, where it's like, if you integrate with Hudu, is IT Glue done for? Are you guys a Hudu company? If you integrate with LionGuard, or look at like backup stuff, right? We have Auvik, we have Domos, right? They fill up the same spot depending on what you have connected. And like, that's kind of what we're trying to be. Like, we're not trying to be this thing that's like, we picked our partner, and if you don't have them, buy. Like Safi's saying, like, the more we got, the better, because we will find a place for them and we'll put them in there. The goal of CloudRadial as a product is to just take your stack, transform it into your client experience, and be able to put it back in here without you having a bunch of pain to go, damn it, they don't integrate with so-and-so. So we're on the warpath to take whatever is most helpful to you and put it in there. So for sure, talk to us about whatever you need. And then again, if you got reps, if you got people, God forbid, if you have a developer or anything that knows they can work with stuff, send them our way. That's literally how we hook up with them and go, hey, what's up? Let's talk.
Yeah, I'm getting a couple of, you know, somebody just asked, you know, is phishing box security training integration in the works? I just answered that, you know, if you know of somebody, you know, that potentially wants to integrate, you know, send them our way. But at this point in time, you know, we do just have we have the bigger brains integration inside the portals, but also understand that this is, you know, it's a light, you know, LMS system. If you want to build your own courses, you can build your courses there. It's very easy to do. I'm probably the least technical of everybody in the company, and I did one on Teams training. So it's easy. You can embed, you know, videos into it, you know, questions, answers. So, you know, just because we're saying no today doesn't mean that you can't do it. You can do it through the LMS system. And then Tom Schutz just asked a question, and I want you to address this. Ricky, is, you know, what does Windows 11 readiness maybe mean?
That's a good question, because I saw that too and I was like, maybe. My guess would be, I have to ask the development team, to be honest. I saw that in, where was that? Was that in
it's in
Monitor
question and answers.
No, I'm saying, it's saying this. I think what's happening here is that it probably can't find the information for whatever reason. I don't know if you're going to see this in real life, because this is a virtual fake machine we built. So my guess is that it can't make the call because it's a bunch of BS anyways, but don't know.
And then someone asked, can you direct me to documentation and best practice report distribution for Bright Gauge? Why don't you address that, Ricky?
I believe, let me see, for Bright Gauge report distribution, you're going to want to leverage the article on third-party dashboards. I think if you search third-party, this guy's your best bet. I wrote that nigh on 6 months ago. This basically talks about, like, obviously Bright Gauge is a big one, really how it works in general, and like how you can both use the code, how you can embed stuff in there. This one probably be number one help. Third-party dashboards.
And also remember, we document or try to document everything as it's going on kind of live, so we can kind of keep everybody in our company up to date. And this is open to all of our partners as well. And so remember to use that support.cloudradial.com. It's fabulous. Product updates are documented there. There's usually very good, instruction there. And then Ricky's going to be updating all of this today, probably in there. But it's a fabulous resource.
Yeah, we do that for, and I've talked to a lot of people that go either way. So for example, if you go to, I don't know if it's August update, whatever, generally what happens, we can just pick any one of these. This is last year's, but the idea that Jeff and his development team put out the overall like high level notes. And then what happens is my team, because we're both support, documentation, professional services, we do all that stuff. We basically go through and do what you guys do, where we go break it. We know what's broken, we know what's fixed, we know what could be better, we know what is really good, and we basically tie it back to as many documentation articles as possible. So it's the same kind of deal for this. So some people prefer to read stuff because they don't want to watch a video. Other people prefer to do it. So what I'm trying to get better at, just in terms of my own stuff, especially for stuff like status workflows, I don't really just want to put a text thing in there, because as you saw, though it might not take, it takes like 5 minutes for me to explain it, and we can always slow it down and stuff. It takes me like 6 pages of text to be like, click button, do this, do this, do this. So really take a look at support. We're trying to amp it up, and we're trying to make it like an actual legible experience that isn't just like full of like irrelevant old content. We are trying to nix old stuff, update old stuff. An example of that, actually, since we're talking about it, is status workflows have changed the meta, again, of CloudRadial dramatically as far as approvals. So if you look at approvals in the Academy, I did this just yesterday, right? Aside from the new ones I just wrote a day ago, there's stuff like, okay, defining change management things. So this is a 2-year-old article. What we're trying to get better at doing is going like, hey, by the way, this is irrelevant, right? Some of these, just for link breaking purposes for SEO, we're leaving up, at least for a little bit, so people can still get clear on them.
We do have a little marketing in our backgrounds. So.
Yeah, we're not just yanking stuff that's been up there forever. Don't do that, by the way. If you've ever thought about doing that yourself, that's a bad move. But a lot of our stuff has been updated. So for example, just ramification laws, we do think of these things. This article used to be like, hey, here's how the notifications work, and we've changed them a little bit, right? We talked about how the approvals work. Even the this is super relevant for this, but in the deployment blueprint that we have that has resources on how to get started and whatnot. Let me pull that up real quick, because I'm hot and passionate about this. The one I'm thinking of is this, right? So we have a deployment blueprint that has a bunch of guides on how to do stuff. And one of the ones that was relevant up until Monday was this, right? There was a section in this blueprint to say, here's a guide on how approvals work. And it's like, okay, cool, but approvals now have dramatically changed, right? You could have different options in the dropdowns, you could have whatever. So my team and I have gone back and actually done this too. So like, we're trying to keep up so much so that we literally even changed this to speak to the latest, where it's like, okay, depending on your company, said like this section didn't exist. So in general, don't take our support like documentation lightly. And if we suck at it and there's something you notice is out of date, tell us, because we take this stuff super seriously, especially when you got a product as feature rich as ours that changes. We try to keep the trail of everything like updated. So keep us on our toes, and we're more than happy to update it. Like anytime someone's like, update this, I'm like, oh God.
Okay, please. So Philip Buchanan had a great suggestion, which I think we do kind of, but we probably could do better. But he said, since new demo and sample content is constantly added to CloudRadial, is it possible to create a place where we can go and add content that, we want to add to our account? That's over in the community, isn't it? Are you keeping everything kind of updated over there?
Yeah,
well?
So there's for the most part, what happens is as new things come out, I can't remember what did I do just the other day? I think it wasn't that long ago. Oh, we did the webinar on how to create good ticketing forms, and that was an example of I've added that new onboard offboard form to the starter content. So new clients are going to have the great benefit of having the best possible version of ourselves, right? That's kind of our motto. For old clients, again, we used to be able to do this mass update thing that for logistic purposes, it becomes just a horrible nightmare. If we're not going to touch your tenants, just start shoving information in there. So we do use the community as an area for that. So much so that if you go into like the, let's see what I did, like problem reports and service requests, you're going to see that I did that, right? It's like, okay, here is the, where is it? I do that here. Shared content, maybe problem reports. I'm looking at the latest. Whatever, it's in here somewhere. It's in the, I'm a fool. How do I get to it? Whatever, it's in the community. We put all of our stuff in here in the first
I think
place.
you're an admin and it kind of messes up your view.
Like I'm trying to remember, it's like, I put that in here, I know I did. All categories, whatever. But yeah, we try to keep this up to date. Again, the logic here is that when you have something in general, you're able to go back to it and you're say like, okay, like they released new courses. It's like, okay, short of having us just jam stuff in there, you go, I want the COVID-19 stuff, click, and then you download it and we have instructions on how to put it in your portal. But yeah, we try to do that for most everything we do.
And then the community is also a great place for you to share your things with our other partners. So if you want to share an assessment, you know, you want to share the way that you're doing ticketing or your service catalog, you know, planner items. I mean, you have the ability to do that there, and it's a great resource. And sometimes y'all do things better than we do. So, you know, it's nice to have.
Well, usually what happens is when you have a brain share of, you know, like literally like 1,000 MSPs putting stuff together, there's a really good chance somebody's going to go, the way you're doing it is stupid. Here's a better way. And I go, thank you. And I just yoink. One of the benefits
Ricky,
of the work.
you're getting close. You're getting close on time.
Yeah, we don't need to keep it to an hour. I don't think anyone's upset by having more time to themselves. But yeah, if there's any questions, please feel free to ask. But other than that, that's what I got for this month's. And then obviously we got a lot of stuff coming up as far as new features. We got a lot of webinars and stuff. So if anyone's needs more of my face, I'll be around.
Yep, Ricky is here, and so are we. And you know, and I also, you know, I hate to kind of go into sales mode, but I do want to tell you that we are really ramping up our professional services, you know, to help you deploy quicker, or if you want to, you know, really deep dive into certain features and figure out how you're going to, you know, work them into your MSP. You know, we're here to help you. You know, I ask that you take a look at, it's CloudRadial.com professional-services. You know, we've got boot camp, which is turning out to be, you know, a great resource. And then you can also book, you know, a block of time with us where we just kind of one-on-one work with you. You know, so take a look at that, and we're here to help you. Just know that.
For sure. All right. Well, then I think I will colloquially adjourn us. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate you joining us, and then we'll catch you around for future stuff. Have a good day, everybody. See you around.
Bye, y'all.